Hey everyone, welcome back to our study in Revelation. We are covering Revelation chapter 10 today. We have another parentheses here, right? Remember we had, as we go through the tribulation period, chapter 6 in Revelation was the seal judgments. Then we had this parentheses in chapter 7. Then we had the trumpets in chapters 8 and 9. And now we enter into the second parentheses. Chapter 10 through chapter 15 is this covering a whole bunch of things that are happening in the midst of these judgments. So let's see what we have talking about here. Chapter 10, starting in verse 1. Then I saw another mighty angel coming down from heaven, wrapped in a cloud with a rainbow over his head. His face was like the sun. His legs were like pillars of fire. He held a little scroll opened in his hand. He put his right foot on the sea and his left on the land. And he called out with a loud voice like a roaring lion. When he cried out, the seven thunders raised their voices. And when the seven thunders spoke, I was about to write, but I heard a voice from the heavens saying, "Seal up what the seven thunders said, and do not write it down." Then the angel that I had seen standing on the sea and on the land raised his right hand to heaven. He swore by the one who lives forever and ever, who created heaven and what is in it, the earth and what is in it, and the sea and what is in it. There will no longer be a delay, but in the days when the seventh angel will blow his trumpet, then the mystery of God will be completed, as he announced to his servants, the prophets. Then the voice that I heard from heaven spoke to me again and said, "Go, take the scroll that lies open in the hand of the angel who is standing on the sea and on the land." So I went to the angel and asked him to give me the little scroll. He said to me, "Take and eat it. It will be bitter in your stomach, but it will be sweet as honey in your mouth." Then I took the little scroll from the angel's hand and ate it. And it was as sweet as honey in my mouth, but when I ate it, my stomach became bitter. And they said to me, "You must prophesy again about many peoples, nations, languages, and kings." So another weird passage, right? Another passage that we might just look at and go, what? Little scrolls and eating them, and what is he even talking about here? Well, let's break it down. First things first, then I saw another mighty angel. This is speaking of another separate angel, not the one that was just being spoken of here. Possibly the one we see back in chapter 5, verse 2. Remember when the four angels are holding back the 5, different angel. In 5:2, we're talking about the one who says, "Who is worthy to open the scroll?" So is this one of the archangels? But it's not God. It's not Jesus that we're talking about. We're talking about an angel here, a very powerful angel, which is why we think maybe it might be the one who was saying and speaking and saying, who is worthy to break the seals? Because we're going to see him once again speaking to John. So, it makes sense that maybe it's the same angel that's speaking to him before and speaking to him again. But much of what we see here sounds a lot like Jesus. A rainbow over his head, wrapped in a cloud, coming down out of heaven. That sure sounds like the imagery of Jesus, doesn't it? But then again, I guess it kind of makes sense that that powerful being from heaven would look, in a very small fraction, kind of like Jesus returning. His glory is the reflected glory of God the Father, so maybe there's some resemblance there. Now, this rainbow over his head, this is where the whole, halo thing comes from. right? You see it in like all the old paintings, and if you go to certain faith traditions, you see halos over certain people's heads. That's kind of where this is coming from. The halo or the rainbow. It's this, that's how the artists depict this shining glory coming off of the person's head, and this rainbow glory, whatever it is. Of course, the rainbow speaks to the promise of God, the faithfulness of God, going back to the time of Noah, where God promises Noah not to destroy the world again in flood. And now we're seeing the world destroyed in Revelation by fire. Not a flood again, but it'll be fire this next time. So we see this angel, and what is the angel doing? He's standing on the sea and on the land. What he's about to do is covers everything. It covers the whole earth, right? Then he has this scroll in his hand, right? Unlike the previous scroll, who is worthy to break its seals, right? This is a little scroll. That's not to say it's like that little, but it's smaller than the big one that Jesus starts opening and creates the judgements, right, that he's reading. This little scroll also isn't sealed. It's open. The little scroll is one that's already open, which kind of leads a lot of scholars to point back to this little scroll is actually referring to the Old Testament because it's open already. He's holding it in his hand. It's like the prophecies from the Old Testament that have already been written. Because we're going to see John is told to eat this. He's supposed to eat it and to digest it. We see this several times in the Old Testament where a prophet is told to eat a scroll. And, there's this taste like honey. So this is kind of copying Ezekiel, and I believe in Daniel too. We have this repeated imagery, and we're having this again, and so it kind of really makes us think that this is really pointing back to the Old Testament, where these same kind of things happen, and then on top of that, this is an open scroll that's going to give him. He's going to digest it and understand it, right? And it's going to sink into him. And it's Scripture is sweet. It refreshes us, but at the same time, when you really understand what it's talking about, it's pretty heavy. It's really bitter. I mean, when we look at Revelation, we're like, yes, Jesus is coming back. This is just awesome. So excited that Jesus is coming back. But then we see how it's going to look when Jesus comes back, and we see the world destroyed. We see millions and millions of people, billions of people killed. And if that doesn't send a shiver down your spine, if that doesn't kind of make you kind of have a little bit of an ick, it's going to be rough times, and I don't want to see them. I don't want to see that happen on earth. I mean, we think about something like a nuclear war in the United States or in other countries around the world. And the devastation is just so unthinkable that we just don't think about it. So when we're forced to stare at the prophecies of what's going to happen, and it looks very much like a nuclear war, it's rough. It's rough. It's bitter, right? So we have the 6 trumpets that have already happened, and we're kind of waiting for the 7th trumpet to sound, which will sound in chapter 16, which will be the bowl judgments. But in this interlude, we see this preparation of John to speak the truth, to prophesy what's about to happen. As it says in verse 11, and they said to me, you must prophesy again about many peoples, nations, languages, and kings. But that's not to say that this book is a complete guide. Some people take this and be like, this is everything we need to know. Everything is in here. It's all there. But yet we see right here with the seven thunders, verse 4. When the seven thunders spoke, I was about to write, but I heard a voice from heaven saying, seal up what the seven thunders said and do not write it down. So what did the seven thunders say? It's a secret. You don't know it. I don't know it. If you say you know it, you're wrong because it's been sealed. John knew it, and John was about to tell us, but he was told explicitly not to tell us. So he sealed it up as he was told. There are many things to come that we don't understand. Many of these prophecies are vague or confusing, and they're designed to be that way. See, God doesn't want to give us every little bit of information. We were just having a conversation at Community Day at my church. We were out reaching out to our community, and we were running a table, and some of the folks got talking about using a GPS versus using an atlas, paper maps. And one of the people's spouses refused to use a GPS, always wants to use paper maps. And that kind of came up in the conversation about how when you're using a GPS, you don't really pay attention to what's going on. You don't really know where you are. You just know when the next turn is, and you're just kind of doing what you're told. One step away, you just kind of, you don't have to gain that situational awareness of where the roads are and which way you're going. You don't know whether you're going north, south, east, west. You're just following the GPS. But as we were talking about that, it suddenly kind of struck me because atlases really give you you have to think your way through it. You have to really understand the situation. And when you're being told blow by blow what to do, you tend not to see that bigger situation. And it kind of occurred to me while we were talking about how that's very much like how God treats us. That's why God doesn't spell things out, one thing after the next, after the next, after the next. He makes us take the atlas out, and he makes us think over it and understand what's going on. Because he doesn't want us to miss the big picture. He wants us to see the big picture. And we need to step back and look at it if we're trying to figure out where our next step is. And I think that's part of the reason why God doesn't explain too much. He wants us to struggle with it, to figure it out, to understand the bigger things that are moving around us so that we can appreciate when God moves. We can appreciate what needs to happen. And so here, we get a glimpse of what is to happen, but we don't get a full, complete picture. We're not permitted to know everything, and it's for our good. Will we see these days in our lifetimes? Possibly. Whether we'll be in heaven or whether we'll be still here on earth. Or maybe it'll be long after we're gone. I don't know. Some people think that these things are happening today. Some people think that these things will be happening very shortly. But it could be 1,000 years from now. You never know. Depends how long it's going to take for all those who have been selected by God to be saved, for all those who would repent, and God's patience, as long as God's patience lasts. And then the end will come. Folks, make the most of your days. Try to understand what God's doing in your life and the people's lives around you. And know that hard times are coming. But God will see us through it. The prophecies are here for our protection and our warning. Let's live in the fear of God, knowing that He will come to judge us at any moment. Not out of scarediness, right? Scarediness or terror, but out of respect, knowing that that we want to be found faithful when he returns. So, keep at it, and hopefully you have a great rest of your week. If you have any comments or any prayer requests, don't hesitate to pop those in the comments down below. Please keep hitting that like button to get this out to more people. But God bless you all. Have a great week. Steve Poplar of Bold Faith Bible saying, till later.